So both Jordan Poole and Draymond were in the top 15 for turnovers, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, if you're done with the Jordan Poole slip and slide, trying to do the Usher, Michael Jackson moonwalk turnovers, you also, now my question is, what about the Dre train turnovers? We know that Draymond train, high risk, high reward. Will we see less of that this year? Hey, I'm just going to dial it back, hand it over to CP3 if he's on the court. Or even if it's Steph, we're not going to try to push everything ad nauseum because that's what we used to do. Because if you think about it, the Kings, they were faster than the Warriors.
They were.
Yeah. And the Warriors aren't getting any faster. And they're not signing guys that are going to get them any faster. They're getting slower.
And I want them to get slower. And I think that that's part of where they need to be at their best. And if you looked at their championship team from 2 years ago, they were 11th in the league in pace. Last year, they were number 1 in pace. Yeah. And that's not all because of Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
And shout out Usher again, nice and slow. Thank you. I'd like to see them go a little bit, let me take you to a place that's nice and quiet.
Right.
And it's the half-court offense.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit nice and slow. Draymond Green appeared on the podcast P with Paul George, and he talked about exactly what CP3 can mean for that second unit, particularly Jonathan Kuminga.
I actually look forward to learning this from him. I think Chris Paul will completely unlock Jonathan Kuminga and his growth. CP is great with young guys. DeAndre Ayton looked like a bust before CP came to Phoenix.
Fact.
No disrespect to Ayton, but more so a nod to CP.
Yeah.
Like,
More of a threat.
people didn't know what they were like, what DeAndre Ayton was going to turn out to be, and then CP went there, and all of a sudden
Turned him
DeAndre
up.
Ayton became an all-star level player.
Right.
And so I think what he will do for Jonathan Kuminga and unlocking Kuminga is huge. Absolutely huge. And I look forward to learning that from him. He's always been incredible at mentoring young guys. And that is an area that I've wanted to grow in because it's one that I kind of got thrusted into.
Mentoring young guys. Feels like Draymond might have had a chance to mentor Jordan Poole, and the mentorship didn't quite go as planned.
And Steph. I mean, those are both guards as well.
Right, but he's not going to mentor Steph. I mean, Steph wasn't a young player that Draymond could
I'm
mentor.
saying Steph could have also mentored Jordan Poole.
Yeah, agreed. And he actually spoke to this in a different cut coming up about Klay Thompson and Klay's role as a leader. Klay's not exactly that same leader, but Draymond feels like he's that guy.
Right.
And he could not reach Jonathan Kuminga, so maybe Chris Paul can reach Kuminga. And I do think, to your point, Alan, that the second unit can be and should be a little bit slower. And the whole team, I think, would be better served playing more slowly because you're not 25 anymore. You have an old core.
Yeah, and another thing that Draymond said on the podcast, and Paul George has one of the fastest growing podcasts. I mean, all of these athletes have podcasts now. I kind of knew that Paul George's would be really good when he released it just because of how he talks the game.
Better podcaster than player, Paul George?
Even if that were true.
Is it getting close? Because I love his podcast.
It's actually not a knock because that's how good he is, but I'm not going to say that yet. I'm not going to say that quite yet. But another
podcast is more durable.
It is. And, well, he's gonna be able to do it either way.
Exactly.
Right? So the variety piece that Draymond talks about with CP3 and what he's going to bring is something that I think out of all the calls and all the texts and all the YouTube chats, everything that we get, we don't see a lot. I haven't seen a lot of people complain about the offense, right? About how they've been running this same offense since Steve Kerr got there. And it's been successful this whole time, right? That's how good Steph is. That's how good Klay is. That's how good Draymond is. But there have been times, and this is why the whole Kevin Durant thing works so well. There are times where it gets stuck in the mud, right? And we saw that. That's why the 2022 championship is so impressive to me.
Right.
Because everybody knows what they're running. They've been running it the whole time. There is no variety. CP3, he has that mid-range. CP3 can add some different things. And that was one thing, as much as people didn't like the KD move, if you weren't a Warrior fan, it made sense. They needed a bucket getter.
Yeah.
They needed that person. So when they did it in 2022, they did it with career years from Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole.
Yes.
And we have no clue if we were going to ever get that again. And even with that, a bunch of other things had to go well. So they had to add someone. Now, do I agree that it should have been CP3? I don't know, but the Warriors don't have a lot of money to play with. They need somebody to where when that offense looks a bit stuck in the mud and people are jumping how many times did the Kings or other teams, the Lakers, jump those passes? You know why? Because they've been running the same thing.
Stuff, and they had no alternative. They had no ability to get Kuminga because he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Wiseman's not on the team.
Right.
You had no other way to get a bucket other than the same old stuff, running those same picks and Steph.
Watch the back cut.
Yeah, well, and you double Steph, and then you close out on Clay, and then Wiggins was not the same player. And you mentioned the word variety, and this is Draymond Green on Podcast P talking about the V.
After the Lakers series, Steph said in his press conference, which was, we ran out of variety. And what I mean by variety is like in a team, you need to have a variety. Like if they're taking this away, then you can go to this. If they're taking that away, then you can move to this. Our team last year didn't have a variety of ways that we could score. And I think CP adds another thing to the menu to address the topic of a variety of things, of ways to score. Because CP plays totally different than Steph.
Right. Yeah.
Totally different than Clay.
Right.
Totally different than myself. And even Jordan Poole for that matter.
Right.
And so I think what he brings is, number one, the variety in which we can play, I think is huge.
The variety, I think that is huge, and that's a fascinating point that Draymond makes in terms of what you're talking about because, Jordan Poole, dribble, drive to the hoop, that was a variety that was different from the team, but he didn't have that punch in the playoffs.
No, and it's still crazy to me watching the highlights from 2022 to 2023 with Jordan Poole. He looked like a completely different player. But it's not even a side note, but you can tell that among all the other things, I don't know if you saw, Dibs, that Draymond did that TikTok thing where he picked teams, and when he got to the Wizards, he picked Kuzma over Jordan Poole for a shooting
we
guard.
did that last week.
But you can tell that Draymond does not mess with Jordan Poole because when he brought him up there, he used his government name. He didn't say Jordan, right? Like he said, and even Jordan Poole, that we can move on. I promise I'll move on, but they're definitely
government name.
The government name. I'm surprised he didn't use his middle name
or his driver's license.
Exactly. So I do think CP3 is going to bring something new, but ultimately he's got the mid-range going. You're still going to need shooting ultimately, and when you look at Kuminga, who's been in his bag, right? He's at that one. He goes to that New York gym summit or whatever it's called, where I've never seen anybody miss. We could go there. I could go there right now on one Achilles, shoot about 80%. Nobody ever misses there.
Man.
Ben Simmons was cooking out there a couple summers ago. So you got Kuminga, you got Moody, who's turning into a knockdown shooter. That's one thing I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Moody getting to the cup more this next coming season. Just beeline. He's not really going to boogie on people like that. Get to the cup, use that pump fake as long as he's continuing to hit shots. So I think that CP3 and Moody can get up. So when we think of CP3 and, throwing lobs, you always think the big, right? But he could throw some lobs to Moody.
Yeah.
He could obviously throw some lobs to Kuminga.
Yeah.
So I think he is going to bring a variety. Ultimately, do I think it's going to be enough? I have absolutely no clue.
But as long as they're healthy come April, I think that they're going to be a tough out for anybody. And this is what I was saying last week to Larry and JD, in for Mark Willard, who comes back on Wednesday. I think that this team, if completely healthy come April, is not completely healthy in October. But if you're all upright and able to play, and Chris Paul is able to assimilate into this role, and Draymond and Steph and Clay and whatever other pieces, and we still have some roster spots to fill out, whatever that looks like, I think that come April, this team with this much experience can be a tough out. 888-957-9570. We're taking your calls today. We got July 4 tomorrow. I got Alan Stiles in today, so I'm going to get a lot of Stiles today, but I want to hear you as well. This from the Comcast business text line from the 925. They could have gotten Westbrook for $8 million. Well, they couldn't have gotten Westbrook for $8 million because they only have slots for veteran minimum players. So if you want Westbrook for $8 million, that means you trade Kuminga for Westbrook, and then you get Westbrook. There's no other way to get any player outside of the vet men.
Can we just close our eyes for a second and think about Draymond, Looney, and Westbrook on the floor at the same time?
That's 3 non-scorers, Alan.
What are we talking about?
I didn't have to close my eyes, and I knew the answer.
What are we talking about here?
We're talking about a lot of non-shooting.